Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Tracy Alexander. Coming up in today's newscast, a record high of coronavirus cases in Israel as authorities weigh reimposing restrictions. Hundreds gather in Tel Aviv raising their voices for racial equality, and Israel's latest targeted missile system makes a splash. Just this morning, at least 5 more schools across central Israel have closed their doors after students tested positive for coronavirus. As it stands, nearly 10,000 Israeli students and staff are back in home isolation, and fears of a second wave of COVID-19 infections is at fever pitch. Aaron Parish reports.
Leftover trickles now turning back into a flood. Virus cases in Israel seeing the largest 24-hour spike in a month, leading the government to heavily weigh reimposing restrictions. 116 more diagnoses confirmed since Tuesday, seeing the total number of infected skyrocket. Active cases rising again to 2,055, 29 in serious condition, and the death toll rising to 290, with 5 more fatalities overnight. But recently conducted blood tests suggest that the true infection rate in Israel may be as high as 200,000. The rising numbers come as thousands more students and school faculty also return to quarantine across the country. Leading Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also facing a return to isolation for the 3rd time after a staffer in his office was diagnosed with the virus. But the education minister is blocking suggestions to immediately close all schools for now. Now, while the rest of the country is still enjoying recent rollbacks in lockdown restrictions, the health ministry is mostly concerned about a second wave of the pandemic. The signs that they're looking for are spikes of 100 infections spread across the country, rather than in localized areas like schools. Some restrictions have also been extended, though, until June 16. The number of people allowed in pools and ritual baths is still limited. Returnees from abroad must still enter quarantine for 14 days. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Authority and the Gaza Strip are also rolling back restrictions, releasing over 1,000 people from quarantine. At least 2 new cases have also been confirmed in the West Bank, sparking concerns around Palestinian workers getting infected in Israel and returning home with the disease.
From internal security to border clashes in Israel's north, tensions with neighbouring Lebanon reaching heights not seen in years. Between Israeli and Lebanese military forces, Israel with tanks and Lebanon with rocket-propelled grenades staring each other down Tuesday, the United Nations peacekeepers having to step in and act as mediators. Israeli troops patrolling the border crossing the security fence, but remained on the Israeli side of the so-called Blue Line. Now, this comes as the IDF returned a Syrian national captured by Israeli forces last month after he crossed into Israel armed with a walkie-talkie. He was shot and taken to hospital. The IDF saying the man was spying for Iranian proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon, but has now been let go. And joining us now with the details of this incredibly tense exchange, Lieutenant Colonel in the Reserve, Sarit Zahavi. Sarit, great to have you with us. Talk us through the details. What happened on the northern border that we saw this standoff?
Well, yesterday there was an activity of the IDF in one of what we call enclaves, meaning that there are territories which are Israeli territories north to the fence. The incident yesterday happened in a territory which the Lebanese do not acknowledge as an Israeli territory north to the fence. And there was kind of a gathering of Lebanese soldiers in front of the Israeli tanks who were operating in the Israeli territory north to the fence. And to them also joined some civilians. They looked civilians, but we can assess that they were probably Hezbollah. And in between, as you can see in the video now, there were UNIFIL soldiers then that were like becoming kind of a barrier between the two forces, between the IDF and the Lebanese armed forces.
Because also we know that this blue line, this so-called blue line, which Israel wouldn't have crossed since the 2006 Lebanon war, this would have been an unprecedented event, at least since then. So we know that it is incredibly tense in the north right now. We have seen a series of smuggling and infiltration attempts along the border recently. So what's going on?
Yes, the feeling is definitely that something is different. Something is changing along the northern border of Israel. I don't recall in the past 14 years, since 2006, that amount of events in a month and a half of few crossing of foreign workers, shepherds along the border, which is kind of routine, but not like that, and fractions with the Lebanese armed forces. And I think drug smuggling as well. And when you combine all these incidents together with creating the holes in the fence last April, we ask ourselves whether these are all actually provocations of Hezbollah along the fence, either trying to normalize the situation, preparing for a terrorist attack, or just provocation, kind of a retaliation to what Israel is doing in Syria.
And very briefly, new Defence Minister Benny Gantz taking his first tour to the Northern Command since beginning his position. Does this point to the level of threat that Israel is feeling in the north?
I'm not sure, because Benny Gantz is now the defense minister. It's his first visit. I can assume that you will see some visits of Gantz also in the south and probably in the West Bank. So he started from the north, but he was probably updated with this tension that is developing along the northern border now.
All right, Sarit, thank you so much for that insight there.
Thank you.
Now, Israeli air defences are also being stepped up with the unveiling of the Israel aerospace industry's latest artillery system. Nittany Manson has the story.
3, 2, 1.
This is LoRa, or the Long Range Artillery Weapons System. And what you're looking at here in this demonstration is LoRa's ballistic missiles slamming into tiny targets at sea. Now, this is the newest ballistic missile system developed by IAI, or Israel Aerospace Industries, a company best known for its Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 defense systems. Take a look at this. At a whopping 400 kilometers, or 250 miles away from its target, the missile is launched, and as you can see, the accuracy is impressive. The LoRa system can be launched either from sea or by land, and both Israel and Azerbaijan are already thought to be operating the LoRa system, with plans to sell to other countries too.
Shifting focus now to Judea and Samaria, leading Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu doing everything in his power to get his plan to expand the country's sovereignty over the finish line. Aaron Porras with the details.
Finally sitting down with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the Jewish settlement heads' long-awaited meeting perhaps not delivering news that they were hoping for. The Yesh Atid Council heads hearing the latest about Israel's plans to expand its sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, Netanyahu telling them to get on board with the United States' Peace for Prosperity plan. Time is ticking, though, a vote for its advancement scheduled for July 1, and the settlement leaders are resistant. The United States plan establishes a Palestinian state, which they're against, and they don't like that the initial 60% to return to Israeli hands has also been cut to 30%. But the settler leaders aren't Netanyahu's only concern. Israeli media reporting the U.S. administration is highly unlikely to approve a unilateral Israeli move in the time frame the prime minister envisions. As of now, finalized maps for the proposed borders are reportedly nowhere near complete, which is a White House precondition before any move is made.
Well, if your Instagram feed is anything like mine, you'll see black boxes dominating the screen as you scroll across users' profiles. It's part of a worldwide statement to stand up against racial discrimination, prompted by the killing of George Floyd in the United States. Tel Aviv holding its own solidarity rally overnight. Take a look.
No justice! No peace! No justice.
Raising their voices for racial equality, hand in hand for the Black Lives Matter movement. Hundreds of Israelis gathering along this Tel Aviv beachfront, calling for an end to what they say is racially targeted police brutality.
I believe that Black Lives Matter, and I believe that all human life is important, and institutionalized racism needs to stop.
I'm not American, I'm African, but it hurts me deeply because it could have been me or it could have been her.
As protests rage in the United States for the 8th day, Israelis overnight taking the knee outside the United States Embassy in a symbolic stance against the police killing of an unarmed black man, George Floyd, last week in Minneapolis.
If you want us to do better, then damn it, you do better!
Please, I can't breathe. The plea made by Floyd to the restraining police officer, now charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter, brandished on banners held by demonstrators of all races.
I'm here to show support, to be present, to take action, to do something, to be and to stand with humans of all races.
Peaceful but proud, Israelis of all backgrounds uniting, saying enough is enough.
Black lives what? Matter! One more time! Let me hear a little louder! Let me hear a little louder!
Chaya Lev, who immigrated to Israel from Texas, telling ILTV why she feels she needs to stand up against the issue.
Because I'm Jewish, I must speak out. This country has shown me that the amount of togetherness, I have to tell you, like I tell my friends all the time, you know, as American, here I'm just Israeli. I'm Israeli. In America, I'm an African American. Why? Why are we so divisive? I see it come together. See everyone come together for moments like this, for pride. And even if we hate each other in the shuk and we're like, no, but man, die, basta. When it goes down, we're together.
Many who now call Tel Aviv home after having moved from cities across the United States, saying Israel's voice is a necessary one to add to the conversation.
I think that this is a universal issue. It's not specifically an American issue. Obviously, there is a completely different context between what's happening in the United States and racism in other countries and racism here.
On the invitation to this rally, a line we've been seeing in many places, it reads, "In a time where being passively non-racist isn't enough, we can choose to be actively anti-racist."
I feel like the Jewish community here can relate to oppression, and Israel itself is a center of conflict, and there's like a magnifying glass on Israel. And as she said before, such problems are also happening in Israel. I think a year ago the Ethiopians here were protesting against the same issues.
Signs with the names Solomon Taka, an Ethiopian man killed by police last year, and Iyad Halak, shot by police last week. Organisers reading out the names of people they say were victims of police brutality in Israel.
Give back the police! Give back the police! Give back the police!
The American Jews like to show all the pictures of Dr. Martin Luther King marching with Jewish leaders then, but often we're not showing solidarity and on the ground with African Americans or Palestinian Israelis who need our help here.
Tel Aviv is the latest city around the world to gather in solidarity against the killing of George Floyd, after other rallies like this one were held in cities like Toronto, London and Berlin.
Having a stance on other places also gives us a chance to look at ourselves and say what we want for our own society, what we want for the world.
Boston Jean, and many more.
Well, responding to the protests, Internal Security Minister Amir Ohana pleading with the public to be patient and not to import American problems to Israel. Take a listen.
לא לנסות ולהביא לכאן את מיניאפוליס ואת הפרעות ואת הפוגרומים. אני חושב שאנחנו במצב טוב יותר. אני חושב שאנחנו צריכים לשמור על הדבר הזה, לשמור על החיים המשותפים בינינו.
Now, as you can see from the pictures in the protest, demonstrators are still wearing masks despite some restrictions lifting around COVID-19. And some Israeli industries are still desperately looking for solutions in order to allow big crowds to gather. Well, a newly developed disinfectant tunnel may be the answer for those wanting to restart events like music concerts and sporting matches. And joining us now with the details, Dr. Eran Avraham and Dr. Yitzhak Cohen from Bar Ilan University. Gentlemen, great to have you with us. Tell us more. How does this disinfectant tunnel work?
This disinfectant tunnel works using disinfectant material which is produced from water and salt and electrochemical reaction. This is a well-known disinfectant which is which has a FDA approval. It's safe to use. It can kill the coronavirus very easily, and also it kills the herpes virus, which is more stable than corona. We killed with it also bacteria, super bacteria, like MRSA, which is very dangerous in hospitals. We hope to stop the chain of infection by using this new technology.
And we know that there is actually a pilot tunnel that's currently being looked at Bloomfield Stadium in Tel Aviv. But now we're seeing so many schools that are being closed due to coronavirus outbreaks. Where else can this tunnel be used? Can it be used in hospitals, in kindergartens?
We hope that after getting the approval for the safety of this material, we can help to disinfectant to use also for school and kindergartens and other crowded places to help lower the chances for spreading the virus. It's a combined solution. We do not say that this tunnel will replace the mask. It's combined with the mask. Using the mask and the tunnel might have a better solution for treating the pandemic of this corona.
And my producer's telling me in my ear that you're actually holding some of the disinfectant in your hand. Tell us, how does it work?
Yeah, so it's very easily, it's like water. You spray it, you can use it, I use it for myself, Iran also, and for my family, kids. I have three daughters. They use it, it's safe for the skin. People around the globe use it for wounds, infected wounds. It can be used for many applications. We developed the technology to produce this material, but this material is well known and very safe to use, much more safer than bleach, regular bleach, or sodium peroxide and other disinfectant materials that today you can buy in stores.
Well, there's one pilot project underway. He's hoping we can see a lot of this technology elsewhere in the country. Dr. Avraham, Dr. Cohen, thank you for that insight.
Thank you very much.
Well, from online shopping surges for gadgets or fashion during the coronavirus lockdown, another trend has been the adoption of pets. Animal shelters, as we've reported here on ILTV, were deemed essential workers. And I can tell you that in our team, our senior producer Nittany Manson adopted a puppy during the pandemic period, and our anchor Aaron Porras brought his dog just before the lockdown hit. So what does it mean for these housebound pups who are now being socialised for the first time? Well, a new Israeli immigrant is helping anxious dogs find their way post-pandemic. Take a look.
From this and this to this. It might look strange, but there's a good reason for all of it. After more than 2 decades working as a senior trainer with seals, penguins and birds, as well as working with animals in zoos around Australia, zoologist Ellie Newman moved to Israel and noticed a startling need for local pets facing a unique environment. The red alert siren ringing out across the country, warning residents of incoming rockets from Gaza, not only leaving a lasting impact on people, but also pets. And Ellie uses this method to help train new puppies in how to cope with the startling noise. Soon after Ellie arrived in the Holy Land, a new set of challenges, the coronavirus lockdown. After spending months inside, now our furry friends are at risk of becoming scaredy cats if they're not yet used to the big wide world. Thanks to Ellie though, pet owners are being taught how best to acclimatise these pooches in a mentally healthy way.
And Ellie joins me in studio now. Ellie, great to have you with us. And it's not just you. Who you brought with you?
I brought along the gorgeous Django. He's from SOS Rescue. They're an organisation here in Israel that helps rescue pets and find families for them. So he's with a foster family at the moment and he's looking for a forever home. So if anyone's interested in the beautiful Django after today, please contact SOS Pets.
We are a very adoption-friendly team. We already have 2 people that adopted in our team, which I mentioned before. But an incredible way to adapt your skills. You moved from Australia, you were working in zoos across the country. You came here and you saw a particular need. Talk me through what you've created.
Well, as you've mentioned, I've worked in zoos in 20 years in a really great zoo, a conservation-based zoo in Sydney, and then I've been teaching animal training and education in zoos across Australia. So I'm bringing that to Israel. We really focus on positive reinforcement, building a relationship with animals. It doesn't matter what animal it is, and really being able to make their life a lot better, their animal welfare better through training and enrichment.
But you came at a particular time, a few months before the coronavirus hit, and then you were able to identify a need, which is that pets were becoming quite anxious, maybe at home, or even now people are going back to work and not knowing what to do, how to bring their pet back out into the world. So how are you training them?
It's a really crazy time. I mean, it was a great time for pet adoptions, and we've seen this all around the world. It was even given a name, pandemic pets, quarantine critters, a name for people getting pets during Corona, during lockdown, which is great. You're at home with them, fantastic. The problem comes post-Corona when everyone goes back to their life and these animals aren't used to being left home alone. So there really are a few things you can do to get your pets used to you being out of the house, which people can put in place to be proactive about it.
So what are some of those things? I mean, we're looking at a video here, which we'll bring up later, because I know this is a different kind of training that we're looking at. But talk us through what people should be doing with their pets as they prepare to go back to work.
I think the best thing to be is proactive. So not go back to your normal routine straight away. Try teach your pets and lead up to it. So things such as finding a safe space for them that they love to be in, whether it's a playpen or a little room in the house, and making it really positive for them, leaving them lots of treats and their favourite toys, and doing it slowly. So really starting by leaving for 1 minute, then maybe 5 minutes, and up to an hour or 2 hours. But making it as positive for the animal as possible, giving them their favourite treat when you leave. So leaving is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Certainly, because we've been hearing a lot about the impact of mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we often think about how that affects people, but we don't think about how that affects pets. So what are some of the signs, perhaps, that our pet might not be coping?
Yeah, so pets, especially dogs, can get separation anxiety, and you can tell if your dog has got it because they'll constantly cry, excessively cry. They'll soil the house when they didn't used to. You might come home and they've chewed around the doors and the window frames, and basically that means doesn't mean that they were angry that you left. It means they were really stressed out and really anxious and not coping. So really starting off small, making it positive when you leave the house. Don't make it a big deal. Keep it nice and simple for them, and really building it up slowly can really help them in the long run.
So I want to come back to that video we were looking at before with you and the vacuum cleaner, because there's a very unique situation here in Israel, which are the red alerts when people that are living here are forced to run into shelter. There's a loud sound that either comes in a siren or in the sound of somebody's voice, and that really triggers pets. So what are you doing to help pets deal with that?
I've had a lot of phone calls, especially recently. We had 2 sirens for Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron, and people saying their pets are in pain, they cry and they can't handle it. And it's scary for a pet that's never experienced it. So the best thing to do is to get that sound that they're scared of. You can see with the vacuum cleaner before, that pet with that little Wrigley was scared of the sound of the vacuum. Play it really softly while you feed them, where you give them treats, while you give them dinner, so that they don't react, and slowly get that sound louder and louder so it becomes non-existent and they're getting lots of treats with those sounds.
Well, tell us a little bit, because it's the Animal Training Initiative, so people can find you if they're needing a bit of help, not only with COVID-19 but many other different kinds. You've worked with penguins, you've worked with seals, you've worked with all these sorts of animals, and you've come from Australia, a very special place for animals, right?
It is a special place. So it's the Animal Behaviour Initiative. You can find me on Facebook. I'm all about teaching animals but also teaching people that care for them. So really trying to find the best way to build that relationship with you and your animal.
Ellie, it was so great to have you here, and your special friend. I love you.
Thanks,
so
Django.
cute.
You're so good.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Part of the
Tracy.
reason I love my job. Thank you. All right. Let's take a look at the weather forecast. You won't have to be keeping your pets inside. A pleasant evening ahead with a low of 18 degrees Celsius or 64 degrees Fahrenheit in Tel Aviv. Tomorrow we're headed for a high of 28 degrees Celsius. That's 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And now, before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel. Well, we've gone from pups to little kitties. It's all about pets today here on ILTV. This little girl teaching these cats to draw flowers. Definitely a skill that will come in handy, I'm sure. All right, well, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.47 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Tracy Alexander, and thank you so much for watching.